Japan agreement, it's critical that not just stop at a mini deal or a phase one, but that blossom into a fully comprehensive agreement. We need trade agreements. TPP in the United States is a bad word, and that's too bad. We should be in TPP. And whether or not we're getting back into TPP, we certainly need to approach a more liberalized policy, whether that's on a bilateral or multilateral basis, and we urge the administration to hurry up and get on with that. Okay, ultimately there's no substitute for committed and enduring economic presence. So as much as we commend the administration for what it's achieved to date, we want to ask some tough questions. How do we bring our engagement to a deeper level? What are the standards by which we partner to invest in the region in a way which promotes that open, transparent, rules-based framework that we all want to see? And how do we guard against protectionism and ensure that all our countries reap the benefits of trade investment? Today's forum will address these and many other questions, and I hope that this event will answer or get us closer to answering those questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And now it is my privilege to welcome to the stage Dr. Gopsak Putragoon, former minister attached to the Prime Minister's Office of Thailand.
Good morning. The Honorable Wilbur Ross, Secretary of Commerce of the United States. Mr. Kalin Sarasin, Chairman, Thai Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Charles Freeman, Senior Vice President for Asia, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be invited to represent the Royal Thai government in delivering the opening address at the second Indo Pacific Business Forum. This gathering is aimed at promoting business and investment opportunity of the private sector in the direction that would help support development in the regions and enhancing the role of the public sector in creating an environment conducive to business and investment of the private sector, thereby promoting future development in the regions. On the behalf of the Royal Thai government, I would like to welcome all distinguished participants, particularly the Honorable Wilbur Ross for leading the delegation of the top U.S. businesses to attend this meeting in Thailand. I would also like to thank the Thai Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for hosting this important meeting, as well as all agencies of the Thai and U.S. side for playing a continued important role in promoting concrete cooperation between the private and public sector of Thailand and the United States. Distinguished participants, the rise of Asia over the past 10 years is an important shift in the dynamics of the international economy, trade and investment. Of particular importance is the role of the region and the sub-region that are now key players in driving forward the global economy. These include Southeast Asia, which is the region that has stability, peace, and continued economic growth. This region is also connected to and have close relationship with two other important regions, namely East Asia and South Asia, collectively known as the Indo Pacific. The three regions of Asia have combined population of nearly 4 billion people, or approximately half of the world population, with the majority in the working age. The region also has economic growth rate that is higher than global average for over a decade, and are the production base of critical industries which are the key to supply and demand chain within the regions and in the world. More importantly, the regional countries still have great business and investment opportunities and are open to cooperation in this area with countries from outside the regions. Therefore, it could be said that the Indo Pacific is truly the region of opportunities. And I think all of you come to the right place. Nevertheless, our region could have not reached where we are today without the role and good cooperation of the private sector, who has been an important partner in our economic and social development. The next important question is how can we work together going forward in utilizing the potential in the region to a greater benefit. Even more important is how we can transform this opportunity into a sustainability that would benefit all parties in the long run, as well as improving the well-being of the people. Distinguished participants, in order for you all to have a clearer picture of the business potential in the regions, I would like to focus on 3 key topics that are interrelated. I might not be frank as Mr. Freeman, but I will try my best. First, given that the Thai and US Chamber of Commerce are the co-hosts of this meeting, I would like to touch on the long-standing relationship between Thailand and the US for over 185 years, or over 2 centuries if you count from the first contact that we have with each other. Our friendship has always been mutually beneficial. Thailand is an important base in doing business for almost 700 leading US companies. And in fact, I hope what Mr. Freeman said will be true, 2 million more to come. And we continue to have unwavering confidence in Thailand, even during a challenging time. Just as President Abraham Lincoln has said about the friendship between Thailand and the US, that we are great and good friends. At the present, Thailand is the second largest economy in Southeast Asia. Our strength derives from our strategic location and what we have developed over the past decade, which are the infrastructure system, strong industry, and solid economic fundamental, including foreign reserve of over $220 billion, the 12th largest in the world. Thailand continues to push forward policies that are business-friendly, including improving law and regulation to add more convenience for business people from foreign countries and also for investors. In fact, over the past 2-3 years, our ranking in the ease of doing business have improved very rapidly from almost 50 to 21 at this point in time. Over the past year, we have passed almost 400 law and regulations to update the outdated law, to reduce the cost for business, and also to lay down the key foundation for the digital revolution. Many laws, for example, Digital Privacy Law, Cybersecurity Law, Digital Government Act, also setting up a new Ministry of Digital Economy has been enacted. We also provide a special privilege for doing business, especially in the 12 targeted industry that we think is an industry of the future. We also have been working on a key project, which is called the Eastern Economic Corridor, and also other infrastructure projects, including the motorway, airport, deep sea port, high-speed rail link, including a total of almost $20 billion US dollars. In fact, there will be many more projects to come, which is to be the target of the investment of the companies who are sitting in this room. The private sector of the US and our friendly nation has been responding well to Thailand investment promotion policies. In 2018, the US company submitted application for the investment privilege from the BOI with the highest total value of more than $10 billion US dollars. And at the same time, Thai companies also continue to increase their investment in the US, amounting to almost $10 billion US dollars, and that creating more than 70,000 jobs in various states in the US. I hope that investment between our private sector will continue to increase and expand. Distinguished participants. The second point that I wish to address is the opportunity and potential of the Mekong sub-regions. The sub-region is very important, not only because it is home to half of the members of the ASEAN, but also it is an important market that is also driving forward the regional economy. The 5 sub-regional countries, the CLMVT, have a combined combination of nearly 300 million people, or close to half of ASEAN, and also have abundant national resources, which are the key factors that continue to attract business and foreign investment. In 2017, the Mekong sub-region received foreign investment of approximately $30 billion, equivalent to 23% of the total foreign investment to ASEAN, with a total trade with countries outside the sub-region value almost $950 billion, increasing from the year before by 16%, and this trend is likely to continue. At the same time, the Mekong sub-region still needs help in many areas. This includes infrastructure, human resource, and labor development. I think they hope to cooperate with you in improve their infrastructure, their human resources, and also their labor development. The CLMVT country has been working together to invite friendly nations, including the US, to become our development partner. Beginning from the ACMEC framework, the ACMEC comes from Irrawaddy, Chao Phraya, and Mekong economic cooperation strategy. This is the three most important rivers in the regions. During Thailand chairmanship of the ACMEC last year, the ACMEC master plan was endorsed to prioritize the area of cooperation that will respond to the need of the sub-region. This includes the infrastructure connectivity, digital economy, and energy, which are the topic of today's meeting. The area of development that I have just mentioned will create great business for the private sector to participate in. And I hope that you will not miss it. Distinguished participants. The third point is related to the ASEAN Summit and the meeting with the ASEAN dialogue partner, which are the most important meeting of the Southeast Asia regions. It's taking place next door from this room. As a representative of the Royal Thai government, it would be impossible for me not to speak about cooperation related to ASEAN. Throughout the past 11 months, Thailand has been performing the role of the chair of the ASEAN under the theme of Advancing Partnership for Sustainability, with attached importance to the sustainability in all dimensions, and one that leaves no one behind. In the fast-changing current world, ASEAN needs to be future-oriented and to have a greater unity, including in the area of economic cooperation, which has been the high priority for all ASEAN member states. At the ASEAN Summit meeting yesterday, the leader of ASEAN reiterated the importance of economic cooperation in various areas. These include the concrete implementation under the Seamless ASEAN, which will connect ASEAN countries in trade, investment, tourism, custom, and also with connectivity initiative of other regions, including the policy of Indo Pacific today. This will help improve the productivity, reduce the cost, and increase the competitiveness of everyone involved. On the RCEP agreement, we are also working very hard up until last night to have a significant progress in the preparation, and Thailand will continue to actively work with all parties concerned in order to reach an agreement subsequently. Distinguished participants, Thailand will continue to promote cooperation and partnership with countries within and outside ASEAN. Our goal is not only to jointly construct common peace and prosperity in the long run, but also to address various types of uncertainty and challenge in the current world. I hope that our good friendship that lasts over 200 years will continue much further and will be the cornerstone of a greater prosperity of our relationship to the futures. I'm very confident that this Indo Pacific Business Forum will achieve all of its objectives and will be an important step for future concrete cooperation in the Indo Pacific regions. Now is an opportune moment. I wish to declare the second Indo Pacific Business Forum officially open. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Dr. Putrakoon. The Royal Thai government has been a wonderful partner for this important forum. Next, I have the privilege of welcoming to the stage our keynote speaker, the Honorable Wilbur Ross, the United States Secretary of Commerce. The Honorable Wilbur Ross, the United States Secretary of Commerce, should be arriving very shortly.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. And a special thank you to the Thailand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the entire Thai government for hosting us here in Bangkok. You have brilliantly executed multiple high-level summits all at the same time. And congratulations to Thailand for a couple of other things. First of all, your successful chairmanship of ASEAN this year, and for the fact that your country has risen in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business rankings so that it now is number 27, just behind Germany and Austria. I think we should give Thailand a round of applause for these achievements. Thanks also to the groups that have come together to make this event possible, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. ASEAN Business Council, the Thai Chamber of Commerce, the Federation of Thai Industries, and the U.S. government team that worked so hard with all of you. We have much to discuss in our relationship. More than 1,000 business and government leaders from 28 countries in the Indo Pacific and beyond have registered for this event. We also have 19 U.S. ambassadors and chiefs of mission in attendance. I am joined here as well at the forum today by leadership from 8 U.S. departments and agencies integral to our efforts to deepen commercial ties. At the other end of this fabulous facility, the East Asia Summit, we also have our National Security Advisor, Robert O'Brien, and his team. I will be dividing my time between the two events. President Trump has made U.S. engagement with the 35 countries of the Indo-Pacific region a top priority of the U.S. government. And recently, Prime Minister Modi joined President Trump in Houston for the hugely successful Howdy Modi event, a first of its kind in the U.S. While President Trump was in Vietnam in 2017, he outlined a vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific in which all countries prosper as sovereign, independent states. I just made an extensive trip to New Delhi, Bangalore, Singapore, Sydney, and Canberra. And in the previous 2 years, I traveled to Bangkok, Hong Kong, and Vientiane. And I joined Vice President Pence in Tokyo, where we initiated the Japan Economic Dialogue. This is probably the most visits in a short time to the Indo-Pacific region ever for a Secretary of Commerce. In my earlier private life, as some of you know, I had businesses here in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Japan, in South Korea, and in India. And on this trip, I'm joined in Bangkok with 40 executives from leading American companies. Tomorrow, our trade mission will travel to Indonesia and then on to Vietnam to continue our efforts to increase trade and investment opportunities for American companies. The Trump administration is extremely engaged in and fully committed to this region. Two-way trade between the United States and the Indo-Pacific region increased by almost 6% last year to a record $2 trillion. This amount is larger than the economies of all but 8 countries in the world. That two-way trade figure of $2 trillion far surpasses U.S. bilateral trade with Europe, $1.5 trillion, U.S. bilateral trade with South and Central America, $1.2 trillion. So you can see how important the relationship with this region is compared with our relationship to other major regions in the world. Meanwhile, the U.S. Asian population grew by more than 70% between 2000 and 2018. It is now more than 22 million people, and there were more than 555,000 Asian American-owned companies in the U.S., and they generated almost $700 billion in revenues in the last reported year. Yet they constitute only one aspect of our commercial engagement with this region. The cumulative stock of bilateral foreign direct investment between the U.S. and the Indo Pacific increased by 5.9% in 2018 to $1.6 trillion. The U.S., in fact, is the largest source of FDI into the Indo-Pacific region, with a total investment at the end of last year of some $866 billion. That is far more, for example, than China's foreign direct investment in the region. That was $504 billion in 2017, of which $381 billion went to Hong Kong, leaving only $123 billion for the rest of the region. According to FDI Markets, the number of U.S. announced greenfield projects in the Indo-Pacific region rose by 23% last year to 1,022 individual projects. And ASEAN is the #1 U.S. investment destination within the Indo-Pacific. Our cumulative $271 billion invested is $29 billion more than U.S. FDI in China and Japan combined. A recent FDI example was Walmart's 77% stake in Flipkart, purchased for $16 billion, the largest foreign direct investment in India's history. Another was Las Vegas Sands' $3.3 billion in Singapore for a new 15,000-seat entertainment arena and a 1,000-suite hotel. Meanwhile, FDI from the Indo-Pacific region into the United States was valued at an amazing $785 billion. Thailand's Global Chemicals PLC and THAILAND have committed $10 billion to a new petrochemical facility in the state of Ohio. Indian steel producer JSW recently invested $500 million in a greenfield facility also in Ohio. Japanese and Korean companies have invested nearly $54 billion in the U.S. auto industry through the end of 2018. And SK is adding $1 billion electric battery plant there, and Samsung and LG are ramping up new appliance factories in the southeastern part of the U.S. And I hear there's more big news that'll be made a bit later at today's event. Since the start of the Trump administration, the Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development have provided the region with more than $4.5 billion of foreign assistance. The U.S. Millennium Challenge Corporation this past June signed a $350 million compact with Mongolia, and in April it finalized $480 million with Sri Lanka. In addition, MCC is currently developing compacts with Timor-Leste and Indonesia, and it has initiated a threshold program with the Solomon Islands. Since July 2018, the Commerce Department has worked with 9,000 U.S. companies, facilitating $7.56 billion in U.S. exports to Indo Pacific countries. Of this, $3.1 billion was for government tenders won by U.S. firms. My department also has worked directly with more than 2,500 Indo-Pacific companies seeking to invest in the United States. Those investments in the U.S. economy have totaled more than $18 billion. And the Commerce Department is currently supporting U.S. private sector in 412 active deals with Indo-Pacific governments. The Department of Energy has mobilized $1.5 billion in public and private investment into 11 renewable energy projects in Indonesia. The U.S. ASEAN Smart Cities Partnership, announced by Vice President Pence in Singapore in 2018, is spurring American investment in the region's digital infrastructure. The U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, created by the BUILD Act of 2018, now has $60 billion available in development funding for emerging markets. Last May, Congress confirmed a full board for the U.S. Export-Import Bank, restoring the private sector's access to nearly $40 billion in its pipeline for U.S. export deals. Multi-year reauthorization of EXIM is currently pending in the Congress, and we're hopeful it will soon pass. And I might note, EXIM President Kimberly Reed is attending this forum. Later in the conference, OPIC Executive Vice President David Bohigian will describe an exciting new initiative called the Blue Dot Network. I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'll just say it is a multilateral approach to fostering economic growth by promoting excellence in sustainable infrastructure development. Meanwhile, we continue to negotiate trade deals with countries in this region. In September 2018, we signed the renegotiated Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. And last month, the United States and Japan signed two agreements, the U.S.-Japan Trade Agreement and the U.S.-Japan Digital Trade Agreement. Under the first, the U.S.-Japan Trade Agreement, Japan will eliminate or reduce tariffs on approximately $7.2 billion in U.S. agricultural exports. More than 90% of U.S. agricultural imports into Japan will be duty-free or will have preferential tariff access. The U.S.-Japan Digital Trade Agreement ensures unrestricted data transfers across borders. It guarantees consumer privacy protections, promotes common principles to address cybersecurity challenges, and supports effective use of encryption techniques. This trade pact should lead to a large increase in the present $40 billion worth of digital trade between the United States and Japan. We're also engaged in a long overdue reassessment of our trade relationship with China, and we are very far along with phase one. Finally, a new transaction advisory fund under the Infrastructure Transaction and Assistance Network helps partners assess the financial and environmental impacts of potential projects. Today, we are releasing a report detailing these and other initiatives the United States is implementing in the Indo Pacific region with bipartisan support from Congress. And if you know much about Washington nowadays, bipartisan support for anything is unusual. So it's very good that that consensus exists for the Indo-Pacific region. The long-standing U.S. commitment to the region's development programs and our open markets for exports have helped millions of people climb out of poverty. We will continue to champion the values that have served the Indo-Pacific so well. Respect for the sovereignty of all nations, the peaceful resolution of disputes, an open commercial environment with transparent agreements that encourage investment and connectivity, and adherence to international law, including freedom of navigation and of overflight. ASEAN took an important step in assuring these values with its June 2019 release of its Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. We see a clear convergence between the principles enshrined in ASEAN's outlook and our own Indo-Pacific strategy. As President Trump said in November 2017, quote, "We have been friends, partners, and allies in the Indo-Pacific for a long, long time. And we will be friends, partners, and allies for a long, long time to come." Now, I've thrown a lot of large numbers at you today, and there's a reason for that. They prove our deep and continuing commitment to the region. And as you gather again in future years, our numbers will only get bigger. One last thing. Given all the publicity about Thailand and GSP, I would be remiss if I did not address it. The GSP issue has been blown way out of proportion. 70% of Thailand's GDP is exports. That's $340 billion out of 481 billion GDP. But the total amount of GSP exports to the U.S. last year was only $4.4 billion. And of that amount, only $1.3 billion is being removed from the zero tariff category. The remaining $3.1 billion, 70% of it, will remain tariff-free. The $1.3 billion that's affected is 38/100% of Thailand's GDP. 38/100%. And that trivial proportion will be subject to tariffs averaging only 4.5%. It's no big deal. But there is still time between now and April of 2020, when it's scheduled to go into effect. There's still time to renegotiate the underlying issue of workers' rights. In any event, Thailand now has a larger amount of GSP exports than any other country. Thank you, and my best to all of you in achieving success during this week's forum and well beyond. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Ross. May I invite the following distinguished guests to come to the stage for a photo opportunity. Mr. Sarasin, Mr. Freeman, and Dr. Putragoon. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take a few minutes to highlight several projects that embody the very best of what we all gathered here today to discuss: the positive impact of private sector investment and government partnership in the Indo Pacific region. To kick off this portion of the program, we'll start with an announcement from the US-Japan Strategic Energy Partnership, which highlights an additional of $10 billion contribution from the Japanese government to promote collaborative LNG projects throughout the Indo-Pacific region.